predictions for the Indian property market in 2016. Will apartment and house prices go up, stay stable or go down? I'm hit by this question regularly and increasingly as we approach a brand new year. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball which answers that. What I do have with me today are the three most respected voices in the real estate industry to tell us what's going on and help us foresee the Indian property markets, also decode them. Hello and welcome to the Realty Debate on home prices. What to expect in 2016? I'm Manisha Natarajan and with me today are Anita Arjundas, Managing Director and CEO of Mahindra Lifespaces Developers, Pirojsha Godrej, Managing Director and CEO of Godrej Properties, Brotin, Banerjee, Managing Director and CEO of Tata Housing. Anita and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. I think it's taken us 3.5 years of doing the property show to get the three largest corporates in India's real estate on the same table. So thanks so much for making the time. The answers that I'd like from all three of you, let me just say which are the ones which are weighing heavy on every home buyer's mind. Number one, what is responsible for the big slowdown in real estate in 2015? Everyone has a different theory. We need to know what really happened. For all the sellers or investors of property who are sitting on property, when will prices of residential property recover and what will it take for them to start climbing up again? And our third question, for those waiting to buy a home or property, will prices come down further and will homes become more affordable? Okay, so we've set the stage. Pirojsha Godrej, starting with you. What happened in 2015? It was literally the most sentiment-wise, both for developers and buyers and sellers, the most negative year, sentiment-wise for sure.
Yeah. Well, great to be with you, Manisha, and particularly here with Anita and Brotin. Looking forward to the discussion. Look, I think there's no doubt that 2015 has been a tough year for the sector. And as you rightly said, I think for broad swaths of the sector, it's been a little bit of gloom and doom. But I think, like with everything else, there are silver linings. I think this is a very cyclical sector. I don't believe that demand for homes in India doesn't exist or this year has vanished for the long term. I think the economy has been going through a bit of a slowdown. I think interest rates had risen quite high. I think general sentiment, which is very important in this sector, has been quite weak. Now, all of that, though, is temporary because I think if you look at it, during the year, interest rates have started coming down. I think most economic forecasts project far better GDP growth in the couple of years ahead. And I think all of that will lead to improved sentiment, which in turn will drive the sector forward. So I think, there's no need for
the gloom and doom story that media keeps painting.
Exactly. I think, while there is definitely things to be concerned about, and it's been a tough year, I'm very confident that we'll recover.
Anita Arjundas, let me just ask you then a very, very direct question. We are blamed a lot for saying unsold inventory at an all-time high, 7, 8, 9 lakh homes across the country unsold. Developers also have a big problem on how this inventory is calculated, this whole fear which is created amongst the buyer's mind that things are not selling at all. Are they right in believing that yes, sales have slowed down, but the numbers that keep flashing, is there a question mark around them?
Sales have slowed down definitely, but I don't agree that there aren't customers out there wanting to buy products. There's still a whole bunch of end users out there who want to buy quality products, invest in a home. The investor community, yes, has kind of slowed down. So they definitely have taken a bit of a backseat from real estate in the last 1 year in 2015. And I would say that's been driven by the fact that prices have been stable in the last 1 year, so they really haven't been seeing the potential upside that they could get when they invest.
So investors have disappeared?
Investors have, I wouldn't say disappeared, but they definitely have diminished in terms of their contribution to the real estate sector. So that's been one reason for the slowdown. If you look at the inventory levels, and I think there are different numbers being floated around by everyone, but I think what's important to see is where is that inventory located, what stage of construction and execution it is in. Many of the projects that are sitting there as launched inventory have done no construction for the last 3 to 4 years. So they're sitting there as almost idle projects not really being taken forward. And therefore, there's a complete stop both in terms of sales and construction on those projects. But having said that, at an overall level, yes, inventory levels are definitely higher than what we'd like to see in the industry.
Okay.
And I think that goes back to what Pirojsha mentioned about the fact that the overall economic environment has definitely been muted. This is a sector which, at the end of the day, is feel good. You need to feel confident about your future. You need to feel confident about your ability to earn better. To be able
And that's missing?
That's been missing definitely from the economy. No new investments announced by corporates. A lot of the investment that you've seen in the last 1 year has been driven by the government and not necessarily by the corporate sector. And I think those are important cues for people to feel comfortable about making large investments and large decisions.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to though still come back. We need to actually look at that inventory overhang figure and say what's going on. So pockets of inventory overhang, but if I sum up the cities, what's going on? Well, some of the worst affected pockets, and these are large real estate markets, they're not tiny pockets. Greater Noida in 2012 did not do very well, 42 months. So it took for the current stock to 42 months to actually get sold. That inventory in 2015 has gone up to 62 months. So the existing supply will take 5 years to get absorbed. Simply put, that's what we are saying. Ghaziabad, another market, 56 months. Noida, so we talked about Greater Noida, but there's also Noida, which is 48 months. So 3 NCR markets, which clearly are in distress. If you look at Mumbai, though, it has a 38-month inventory overhang, Navi Mumbai 36 months, and Chennai 33 months. So these are Brotin worrying numbers. I don't think, in the last 4 years that we've been covering real estate, we've not seen such hold up of sales, let's say. And maybe some traction in the last 2 months, but there has been sort of a hold up for the entire 2015.
So I think, rather than focus on what has been, and I think my panelists have answered it very adequately, I would think that we need to focus on what we need to do to ensure that the time ahead is better for all of us and for the industry in general. So I think for a large number of players, what they would be doing is looking at this number and thinking of future launches should be at a price point at which they will be able to move stock. I think one of us was speaking about there being an entire focus on velocity premium rather than on the price premium, which used to be the case with all of us maybe a couple of years back. So you will reprice your product, you will reprice your packaging, you will reprice your typologies, at least in the apartment space going forward. So you would find that there are going to be a few builders and developers who are going to do exceedingly well, even in the market as nebulous as this. I think there's a great opportunity, and I think that we look at it as an opportunity because I think on the long run, this was required for us to learn a lesson, look at the right kind of pricing. We thought that the pricing will keep going up. It hasn't gone up. So it's a good time to look at it. There are certain worrying trends, but I think that the government is trying to look at what it can do to better it. I think the fact that the Real Estate Regulation Act, which will come in, will add a little bit to the buyer confidence because it's an act which has largely been configured keeping their interest in mind. Also, I think that the fact that a large number of projects are right now in the replanning stage, that should add to suit the current consumer requirement. I think these 2 or 3 things will add a lot of confidence in the marketplace.
Okay.
The fact that developers are now focusing on finishing their projects and bringing in the confidence level which is required, I think that also will add to buyers' confidence.
To some amount of confidence. Let's also look at one other strategy which developers have followed, and I'm sure we can take Mr. Godrej out of that equation because they've launched, I think, 9 projects this year. But overall, if you look at the new launches, there's been a big decline. Not going to go through micro market data, but MMR, let's just take 2 of the largest markets. MMR, there's been a decrease of 70%. NCR, which is Noida, Greater Noida and Gurgaon, there was a decrease of 52%. The base year we're taking is 2012 and what happened in 2015. Pirojsha Godrej, so overall, if I look at the way developers have responded to this sentiment negativity is by just reducing the number of launches. My question to you is, and this is something that I have always questioned, what happened to what kind of projects were launched? Was there not a complete mismatch of what really is the demand out there in Indian market in terms of affordability and what the supply has been?
I think, Manisha, that's a very important question, and I think we've seen that repeatedly in the real estate sector, frankly, both here in India and internationally and in different asset classes. So, for example, a few years ago, it was talked a lot about the oversupply of retail space because there were so many malls that were empty and being, underutilized. But the fact was that the malls weren't properly planned. They were not malls that people wanted to do in, and malls that were adequately planned were doing exceptionally well. So I think, there is an element of that that's currently taking place as well. That, there's been a mispricing and a misdesign of products in many, many places. And I continue to believe that the products that are appropriately priced, that are in locations people want to be in, that are brought to market by developers people trust, are really not seeing any dramatic slowdown. For example, we're extremely happy with our sales for this year. That said, I think one has to be able to, in this sector, kind of focus, both on managing the short term, but really preparing for the long term. Because there's no doubt in, I think, any of our minds that there's going to be tremendous demand for Indian real estate, and this is going to be a multi-decade long growth story. There's also probably no doubt in any of our minds.
Are we based, so when you say prolonged growth and a multi-decade growth, are you basing that on your demographic dividend? That the fact that there are so many young people and the entire urbanization story?
Yeah, well, I think any kind of fundamental data you look at or analysis you do would indicate that. So yes, one of the things would be the urbanization story. I think India today still has only 35% of its population living in cities. That is going to dramatically increase over the next few decades. Indian income is continually growing. Now, it may not grow as fast as all of us want, but 7-8% GDP growth is nothing to scoff at. And when countries go through this kind of a growth stage, this is a sector that always benefits disproportionately. So if you look at, say, Japan after World War II, or if you look at China over the last couple of decades, the scale of this sector is something that, we're nowhere even approaching. The big Chinese developers, for example, sell 150 million square feet in a single year. I think, if you ask all of us and we combine our sales for the entire history of our organizations, we might not get there.